Doing a quick mic check. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me also over on
Doing a quick
Facebook.
mic check.
And let me know how this sounds as well. I'm messing around with the microphone settings. I don't have my usual microphone with me tonight, but if you could just let me know if this sounds okay. All right, I'm gonna set a timer up here. It's about 2 minutes till 9 Eastern time. I'm gonna give just a few minutes past 9 so that we can get a good crowd in here over on Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook. And I'll pop this timer up here on the screen. Let's maybe do like 4 minutes. And we will get started soon. Looking forward to it. All right, doing another quick mic check. All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending on a Sunday night. This was originally scheduled for Thursday, but we did have to move it. So thank you all for adjusting your schedules for that. We do have some people, we got folks in on 3 different platforms right now. We have Zoom, we have YouTube, and we have Facebook. If whatever platform you're watching from, if you can just let me know if you can see the screen okay. It should say T7 Math, Numbers and Algebra. Let me know if you can hear me okay. All right, Zoom is good. How about Facebook and YouTube? All right, perfect. Very nice. All right, good. So T7 Math, what we're doing with these webinars, if this is your first time, feel free to come in on the chat. Let me know if this is your first time or whether it's not your first time. With the webinars that we're doing at Archer Review, since about March, we have changed what we used to do about a year ago, and we're doing what's called all-in-one webinars. And all-in-one webinars, when it comes to math, you can see right here on the screen that this says part 1 of 2. And there's 2 parts. There's the numbers and algebra part, and then there's the measurement and data part. And measurement and data, I did that one last month, and then I'll do it again in June. So if you haven't registered for June's, there are some June webinars available. There are more coming soon, but go ahead. Basically, what you can do in 2 webinars with me for math, we can cover almost everything that you could possibly see on the math portion of the TEAS. I say almost, I will cover every single goal with you in the 2 webinars, but I can't show you every single type of question, but I will cover every single goal with you in 2 webinars. And then I can point you to some additional resources, some free ones, as well as some that are not free. But tonight is the first part. Now, TEAS math is broken up into 2 pieces. As M.1 is the numbers and algebra. And just to kind of give you a preview, right here on this screen, part 1 is M.1, and then it's called M.1.1, M.1.2. But this is what we're going to look at tonight. We're going to look at 10 goals that make up M.1. And then next month, it'll be M.2 right there. And that's when measurement and data will pop up. So you're going to see that next month. And that's where the geometry and stuff comes into play. Now, I do see some familiar faces, even though I'm cycling these webinars, like I did part 1 back in March. It's not the same webinar. So good news. If you attended this webinar in March, I do have different examples. So it's not going to be, even though it's the same goals, these are going to be completely different examples, still falling underneath M.1.1 through M.1.10. If this M.1 junk does not sound familiar, if you go over to ATI's website, this is exactly how they break it down. So we're trying to keep things at Archer as consistent as possible to match with the TEAS, and that includes other things that we have besides these webinars. So to point out a few things to you before we get started tonight, everybody, hopefully, where you did register for the webinar, or either you're watching through, we just started streaming the webinars, and the only one we've done for TEAS is math, but hopefully in June, we'll start streaming the English, the reading. And we have 2 new science instructors on board. I'm super pumped about, I'm actually going to join them on their first webinar, which will either be June or July. We're still getting them onboarded. They're turning out some great content. We got a lot of new things coming out for TEAS, but science webinars, maybe in June, definitely in July. But we got 2 new instructors who are on board helping us with science. Now, if you have missed a webinar, then you can go back and rewatch most of the webinars. Some of them we don't put up there because they are essentially the same, but you can go back and rewatch the on-demand videos. There's tons and tons and tons of videos up there, and I'm actually going to share some of that with you all later on tonight to kind of motivate you to maybe consider looking at these on-demand videos. But Yes, that does come at a cost, but this is something that you should be using if you haven't already. Our free question bank at Archer, I personally made all the math questions. You get it free for 30 days, and it's fantastic. There's over 1,500 questions, and it covers every single subject: English, reading, math, science. I wrote all the math questions, all the answers to the math questions. I didn't do the English and the reading because you don't want me to try to teach you English and reading, and I didn't do the science either. But we have a bunch of questions to help you crush the entire TEAS test, and we're getting great feedback on those. Archer's kind of new when it comes to TEAS, but Archer is not new in the nursing field. Archer Review, very popular amongst the NCLEX crowd, nurses who have already gone through nursing school and they need to take the NCLEX. Y'all probably heard of the NCLEX, but that's what put Archer Review on the map. And I came on in January full time. And what we're trying to do is we want to get you sooner. We want to get the nursing students sooner. We want to get you at the pre-nursing level. And basically, we'll be right there beside you all through nursing school, all the way through NCLEX. That is the game plan. So feel free to look over that. By the way, tonight at the end of the webinar, I should have mentioned this sooner, you will get a copy of everything that you see up here on the screen. I'll share all of these notes with you all. So don't feel like you have to copy down everything, especially when we start doing the math. When we start doing the math, treat it like the TEAS test, where you're not going to copy down the problem when you're doing the TEAS test. Instead, you're going to start working it out because, again, I'm going to give you all of this stuff tonight. Now, if you want some one-on-one help, we do have private tutoring. We are exploring small group tutoring. I don't think we quite, if you have a couple of peers that you know, classmates or friends that are preparing for the TEAS, you can request some small group tutoring, and you can actually use that QR code right there, or you have that link. And again, I will share this with you all tonight so that you can make that request if you have a bunch of people. Very affordable. Small group tutoring, 25 bucks an hour. But if you do want private tutoring, we offer that as well. You can work with me one-on-one for math. Tammy Summerlin, she does the English and reading webinars. Jasmine Gill, she does science and math. And I mentioned 2 new science instructors. Eventually, they're going to be coming on board and doing some tutoring as well. That's kind of an overview of other help you can get. I mentioned the on-demand video library. We have the all-in-ones, like tonight's, for example. As a matter of fact, check this out. Let me see if I zoom in on that. I don't know if you can read that right there. Math all-in-one, part 1 of 2. Essentially, this webinar right here was the one I did back in March. But again, and if you do have the on-demand library, if you go and watch this one, you're going to see different examples in this video than the examples you're going to see tonight in this webinar. So that's how I still make them different. I'm covering the same goals and objectives with you all tonight, but I'm doing different problems. That's how we can still make these all-in-ones unique. I like it. I've enjoyed doing it. It is a lot of material, y'all. A lot of material. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you to hang on to your seats because we're going to be covering 10 goals tonight. Now, Slido, you do not. Oh, and by the way, if you ever have a question, come in on the chat. I can see YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom chat. Everything appears to be good. So if you ever have a question, feel free to type that question out. I'll either answer it in the chat or I'll answer it up here by just, talking about it. So if you want to, you don't have to do this. Slido, it's kind of like a way that you can interact and submit answers. Feel free to submit your answers. You can either do it through Slido tonight. You can do it through the Facebook chat, the YouTube chat, the Zoom chat, however you want to do it. You don't have to, but it's just a way to make it interactive because that's how I've done my webinars for nearly 2 years now. I've been doing webinars for almost 2 years with Archer, been doing TEAS stuff for a decade. I was around doing TEAS stuff when it was the TEAS 4, then TEAS 5, then TEAS 6, and now TEAS 7. I've been doing TEAS stuff for a long time. Been teaching math for almost 20 years, college level mathematics. But this is one of my funnest things to teach, is to teach pre-nursing students how to pass TEAS tests. So Slido, type in that code to join. As a matter of fact, I might go get my phone in a minute, but you can submit your answers that way. So any questions? There's the goals and objectives again. And by the way, too, I mentioned our free question bank. When you actually dive into the Q bank, I'll tell you what I'm going to do real quick. Let me go to the Q bank, and I'm going to pull it up here on the screen. So once you get free access, 30 days to our Q bank, I mean, this is NCLEX up here, but the T7 Q bank, notice those 10 goals, right? Well, if I go to create a test in the Q bank, what I can do here, oops, let me switch one thing over. You can set it to tutorial mode, and I do want to address this. Tutorial mode will tell you the answer after every problem that you work out. Whereas time mode is where you can set the time limit and you don't know what you get right or wrong until you're done. So that's like test mode, I guess you could say. But to kind of break down I'm going to look at all questions. And I want you to notice right there. Notice math has numbers and algebra, measurement and data, right? So numbers and algebra, there are 323 math questions that make up those 10 goals that we're going to look at tonight. So if I check on numbers and algebra, and what it pulls up are, if you were to count these ones that are bold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's those same 10 goals. For example, M.1.1 is fractions, decimals, and percents. So if you wanted to practice just M.1.1, if you're not following along with that, check this out. Look right there. What does that say? M.1.1 convert non-negative fractions, decimals, and percents. That is goal M.1.1. So you can focus solely on that goal. And this applies to our entire question bank. Maybe you saw the science, the A&P, the chemistry, the bio, the reading stuff. You can focus on specific goals, and that is a great way to study. Y'all, I've been teaching for a long time. That's how you need to study. Focus on specific goals at a time. So that's our Q bank. And then once you load this up, creating a test. And then for math, now I got my screen. Let me make that bigger. And, which of the following is not equivalent to 875%? I'm just going to click on something like maybe that one. I don't know. Well, I do know, but what I'm really after here is to show you if you're in tutorial mode, when you click your answer, it'll show you what the correct answer is, and you get a rationale to every single question in our Q bank. So I think it's a great resource. That's what really separates our Q bank from a lot of other question banks. It is just the number of questions and the rationale. You actually get an explanation to stuff. So that's the Q bank. And one more thing before we actually do let me see here, close that. And I'm going to go back to one more thing in this dashboard. So this is where the Q bank is, but I want y'all to also notice too, on-demand videos. So this is where tonight, hey, for example, take M.1.1. If I type in decimal up here, this webinar right here was, I think, the first webinar I did back in 2022. Fractions, decimals, percents. I did an entire 2-hour webinar on just that one goal, M.1.1. Then I did another webinar on M.1.2. But the downside to that, y'all, was that it took me 10 webinars to cover just the first half of the math portion. They are there. They are available in the on-demand library for you to focus in detail on every single goal and objective. But tonight, and what we're doing with these all-in-ones is that we're giving you a higher level view. I'm covering half the test tonight, essentially. So with that said, everybody up on Slido, we ready to get started? Any questions before we jump into things? How's the audio? How's the video? Nice. And how about Facebook and YouTube? All right. Perfect. So here's how the webinars work if this is your first night. I'm going to put a problem up here on the screen. Let me just slide this guy on over. I'm going to put a problem up here on the screen. I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Now, let me explain why I do 1 minute and 30 seconds. So 1:30. 1 minute and 30 seconds on the math portion of the T7. You have 57 minutes. Look at my calculator over here. You have 57 minutes to do 38 questions. Now, oops, let me come on down here. 57 minutes to do 38 questions. So if we take those 57 minutes that you have and you divide it up into 38 questions, you have 1.5 minutes per question, 1 minute and 30 seconds. So with that said, I'm going to get this show on the road. Let me get my Slido up. So Slido, if you're on Slido, you should be able to submit an answer. And if you want to use the chat, that's fine as well. But here we go. Here's our first problem, 1.5 minutes. Go ahead and give it a shot. All right. So I was sitting here talking and I realized I didn't unmute myself. So 9/16, you can see it two different ways. 9 with the slash, like diagonal, or you can see it horizontally. But what you do need to know for goal M.1.1, when you're dealing with fractions, you divide the fraction. 9 divided by 16. Let's do that right now. And this, what we're getting here is our decimal. So 0.5625. Now, all this is, y'all, this is just the decimal representation. When you divide a fraction in the calculator, and yes, there is a calculator provided to you on the exam, the button layout is pretty much identical to what you see over here. The colors of the buttons and all that junk is a little bit different, but the layout is the same. Like your percent button's up here, your square root button is here, all that good stuff. But when you have a fraction, when you divide it, you convert it to a decimal. Now, a lot of people picked A, whether it be Facebook, Slido, anything. But actually, This is just the decimal. And what y'all need to notice here is that every single one of these answers are a percent. Do you see what I'm saying? All of these are percentages. So we need to go another step. Now, two ways that you can convert a decimal to a percent. You can either move the decimal 2 places to the right in the decimal form. If we take that decimal right there and we move it 2 places to the right, we will have 56.25%. This is our answer. You have to recognize that every single one of these answer choices was a percent. So when we convert our decimal to a percent, one way I mentioned is you move the decimal 2 places to the right, or some people like to think to multiply by 100. So let me do that on the calculator. If we take this decimal and we multiply it by 100, this is our percent, 56.25%. And I'm going to do something different. I don't think I've ever talked about it this way in a webinar. But y'all, here's what I want y'all to do. I want y'all to think about this. Suppose you were in a class and the teacher gave you a pop quiz. All right. I'm going somewhere with this. On that pop quiz, there were 16 questions. 16 questions. That's the total number of questions on that pop quiz. If you got 9 out of 16 correct, if you got 9 out of 16 correct, didn't you get a little bit more than half of them right? 8 out of 16 would be exactly half. Well, we got 9 out of 16. Actually, check it out. If you got 8 out of 8 divided by 16, your grade is not a 0.5. Your grade is a 50%. And the point I'm trying to make here is since we got a little bit more than half, we got 9 out of 16. So 9 out of 16, your grade is not 0.5625 in terms of percent. Your grade in terms of a percent would be 56.25%. So I hope you can kind of see that connection there where we're taking a fraction to a decimal and converting that decimal to a percent. But it is kind of a way that you can look at it and think about it here. You might be saying, well, look, 9 is a little bit more than half of 16. So it's a little bit more than 50%. It's definitely not going to be 562%. It's not going to be 5.6%. A little bit more than half, a little bit more than 50%. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Now, y'all, I'm going to go through every single goal tonight. M.1.1, I'm doing one example. Again, to reemphasize, back here in our on-demand videos, every single goal, I mean, there's tons of videos up here, but basically all of these videos dive into each specific goal and objective for all of the subjects. To reemphasize that one more time, if I type in the word decimal up here, this webinar right here, all it focuses on is M.1.1. And we do problem after problem after problem after problem of fractions, decimals, percents. But tonight, just one example. So here comes M.1.2. This is the order of operations. Now, y'all, back here before I start the timer, this was a multiple choice question. On the TEAS, you do have other question types. You have fill in the blank. And that's what this one is. Fill in the blank, minute and a half, give it a shot. Now, I originally planned on making this question a multiple choice, but it's because order of operations I've seen times open. I forgot to even open this up on Slido. My fault. I'm going to forget that. That is totally my fault. But if you want to submit it on Slido, feel free. I just opened that up for you. Now, with this question, fill in the blank. First of all, I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it. And again, guess what? 2-hour webinar on just M.1.2. So when students see order of operations problems, parentheses, for the most part, people have that idea. They're like, okay, I need to do parentheses first. So we're going to take 36. We're not going to bring all that stuff down. Thank you. And in parentheses, we're going to get 6. So you are going to work out that stuff in parentheses first. Here's where people start to mess up. Now, technically, this does mean the following. I didn't change anything here. Technically, I did not change a daggone thing. 3 right beside this 6, this does represent multiplication. And a lot of students want to multiply first, but what you're supposed to do when it comes to please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You ever heard of PEMDAS? Notice I wrote the M and the D on the same line, so to speak. You do not always multiply before you divide. It's whichever comes first from left to right. You want to divide first because that comes first from left to right. That's how you handle multiplication and division. And some people are like, no, you don't. Yes, you do. I promise. So we're supposed to divide first. And if you take 36 divided by 3, you get 12. Then you're going to multiply by 6. You will get a different answer if you took 3 times 6. Some of y'all who put 2, I hope y'all see why you're supposed to divide first in this case, from left to right. Our final answer here is going to be 72. And by the way, even though we didn't talk about addition and subtraction, the same thing applies there. You add and subtract from left to right, whichever comes first. Any questions about that? So I'm looking over on Slido, I'm looking on YouTube and Facebook. And yeah, even in the Zoom chat, I'm seeing a lot of 72s and a lot of 2s. The answer of 2, that's if you took 3 times 6 first and you got 18. And then if you take 36 divided by 18, but that's not the correct way to do the order of operations. But if I had made it multiple choice, it looks like it would have been about 50-50. 50% would have picked 72, 50% would have picked 2 instead. So anytime, so a couple of questions. Oh, by the way, somebody over Facebook, Miss Monroe, she says these webinars helped her pass the TEAS. I've definitely seen you active over in our Facebook group on Archer too. Thank you. Been following Archer for a year, so we appreciate that. Please spread the word, no doubt about it. Another question over in Facebook, does it apply to all kinds of equations? Now, we're going to see equations in, I think, maybe 2 examples. These are actually technically not equations. I understand exactly what you're saying, though. These are actually expressions. You are evaluating expressions. If you ever have a math problem with just numbers, to answer this question here, if you have a math problem where you got to do order of operations to figure out a numerical value, yes, you do PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide from left to right, and then add and subtract from left to right. Always applies to problems where you're essentially just trying to crunch numbers, so to speak. That is that is M.1.2. Perform, arithmetic. Some people say arithmetic. And that's order of operations, PEMDAS. All right. So M.1.3, compare and arrange rational numbers. So we want to arrange these values in ascending order. And honestly, y'all, I shouldn't even have an A, B, C, D here. This is another question type for the TEAS, and it probably will be a question type where you have to take these values and you have to drag them and put them in the correct order. So there is a correct order. Now on Slido, you're going to have to type them in, obviously, or even y'all submitting answers, but put these numbers in ascending order. That's the kicker. Ascending order, minute and a half, give it a shot. Now, as I mentioned on the TEAS, if this is not a multiple choice question, this will be a question where you'll have to take your mouse and drag and put these items in a certain order. So I think even though, I'm only doing one example of each, I'm going to talk about what these words mean. So if we go from least to greatest, smallest to biggest, that's the same thing as increasing order, which is the same thing as ascending order. All three of these mean the same thing. And a lot of people will say, if they see the word increasing, they think it goes from biggest to smallest. But increasing, if something increases, if the temperature increases, it goes from a lower value to a higher value. Ascending means the same thing. Now, the way that comes to mind here, ascend. If you ascend the stairs, if you ascend a set of stairs, you go from a lower level to a higher level. Now, the other words that you want to be familiar with, I'm going to do these in a blue color, just to go ahead and put them up here. If you go from greatest to least, that's going to be decreasing or descending. So I at least, even though this example does not talk about those, I at least wanted to mention it. So these are the key words to look out for. Now, let's go back to M.1.1. M.1.1 was converting between fractions and decimals and percents. And what I want you to do, and maybe some of y'all did this, is we're going to go down and we're going to divide all these. And the way I tell people to do this is to think about money. So let's take 7 divided by 8. 7 divided by 8 is 0.875. And if we think about money, this is approximately 88 cents. 88 cents. 0.875, that 5 is telling that 7 to go up. And this is a strategy for putting numbers in order. So 0.875 does not sound like money, but it's approximately 88 cents. What about 17 divided by 18? Ugly decimal. We get 0.94 repeated. The 4 gets repeated. That is approximately 94 cents. Notice I'm rounding to 2 decimal places because that's what we're used to with money, right? 2 decimal places. What about 47 divided by 84? So we get, and this is a very crazy decimal, 0.5595, blah, blah, blah. But this is approximately 56 cents. That looks like that's going to be the smallest one in terms of money, right? And then 67 divided by 72. We get 0.930 and the 5 gets repeated. I don't really care about the repeating 5, but this is approximately 93 cents. So convert your fractions to decimals, or even if you had percentages, converting your percentages to decimal form. When you get a number in decimal form, think about money. So now we want ascending order. We want the smallest one to be 47 over 84. That is the smallest one. The next smallest would be this 88 cents, because this was, by the way, 47 over 84 was the 56 cents. That is the smallest one, and we are ascending. We're going from least to greatest, followed by the 7 over 8, because that was 88 cents. Then we have the 93 cents, 67 over 4 or 72. And then the 94 cents, 17 out of 18. That is the list in ascending order, increasing order, least to greatest. They all mean the same thing. Let me know if you have any questions about that. And, you know, to kind of tie it back into M.1.1. All right, suppose you had a pop quiz, y'all. I'm not talking about money now. I'm just trying to get you to think, get them gears turning in your head. 17, suppose you got 17 out of 18 questions correct on a test or a pop quiz. Wouldn't you be happy? I sure would. If you got 17 out of 18 questions correct, even though this says 94 cents, that's in terms of a grade, you would have approximately 94% on that pop quiz. Whereas down here, suppose you took a test and you got 47 out of 84 questions right. If you got 47 questions right out of 84, hey, I've been there, done that, got a t-shirt. That's not too hot. That's around a 56%. You still got more than half of them right, but not by much. And I do see some of y'all coming in on the chat saying, you know, you've never really thought about it like that, but that's how, you know, fractions and decimals and percents, fractions in general here, that's how they work. And then somebody said, yeah, because it's almost 100. Like, yeah, suppose you got 18 out of 18 questions right. Now, sure, you could think of that as being equal to exactly $1. If you take 18 divided by 18, you get one whole, but really you could think of it as 100% because you got every single daggone question right. So that's M.1.3, putting numbers in order. Guess what? I'm going to sit there, watch this. Let me come out of here, and I think if I type in the word order, oh, so look, this was M.1.2, order of operations. I think, yeah, that's the one we did a while ago with the PEMDAS, an entire 2-hour and 24-minute webinar on problem after problem after problem of order of operations. And then putting numbers in order, another 2-hour webinar on just putting numbers in, increasing, decreasing, all of that stuff. That's in the on-demand library. Yep. Somebody said the money idea. Yep. Thinking of money, that's That's how I always, a lot of things in math I like to relate to money. Especially when you're dealing with positive and negative numbers. Like negative numbers, we don't want to be negative in our bank account. All right, so here's M.1.4. Earlier tonight, somebody mentioned an equation. Now we truly do have an equation here. Minute and a half, give it a shot. Now, M.1.4, solving single variable equations. This equation here, if you struggle with equations, this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because you do have variables on both sides. And I tell you what, I'm going to make this just a touch bigger. Boom. Now, when I'm solving equations, first of all, I find my equals, and that's what separates the left-hand side from the right-hand side. I like to get my variables. Well, there's parentheses you got to worry about. Well, guess what? There's a 2-hour webinar on equations. This one does not have parentheses. We don't have to worry about distributive property, but I do want to get my X on one side. A lot of students like to get the variable on the left-hand side. And let me just write this down. And I'm not going to rush through this because I'm only showing you one equation. You need to practice a lot of these. But look at what I'm doing here. First of all, I'm subtracting 7x. And whatever you do on one side of the equals, as long as you do it on the other side, and notice I'm putting it here. I'm not putting that minus 7x here because we can't combine the minus 5 and minus 7x. Those aren't like terms, but we can combine those. But look at what happens. And I'm not rushing through this. This is where people rush and they don't think about what they're actually doing. What does this give you right here? Let me ask you this question. What's 25 minus 25? 0, right? What's 8.2 minus 8.2? 0. So my point here is if you take 7x minus 7x, you get 0x. You get nothing. It cancels out because this is equal to 0. And what you've done is you have technically moved the variable from the right-hand side over here to the left-hand side. This is one of the things that students do struggle with when it comes to solving equations, is getting that variable on one side. Again, did I have to move it over here to the left-hand side? I did not, but a lot of students like to move the variable to the left-hand side. Now, a little calculator trick, even though you do not have a negative button, watch what happens if I type in 4 minus 7. I'm going to combine that, 4 minus 7. 4 minus 7, the TEAS calculator will spit out negative numbers to you. Even though you don't have a negative button that you can just use on a regular basis, 4 minus 7 does give you -3. So I'm going to write -3x, combining like terms. Bring down the -5. Haven't messed with that yet. You'll see my yellow line? See how this keeps everything nice and organized? I'm going to keep that equals right there lined up. And then I'm going to bring down this positive 13. If I just write 13 like that, that means the same thing. So 13, positive 13, same difference. Now that we have the variable on the left, we have 2 steps left here. We need to, technically you could move the -3 first. I always recommend saving that number that's in front of X. I always recommend saving that for the last step. So let's move the -5. We have -3x minus 5, or subtract 5, is equal to 13. The opposite of subtracting 5 is to add 5. And we're trying to cancel out again. What is -5 plus 5? 0. It cancels out just like 7x minus 7x did. But we added 5 on one side of the equals. We're going to add 5 onto the other side. Well, that's going to give us 18. 13 plus 5 gives us 18. I'm bringing my equals down. And let's bring down our -3x. Now we got to get x by itself. That number in front of x is not getting subtracted. Nope. I know you see a -3x. That 3, technically a -3, it is actually getting multiplied. That's what -3x means. It means -3 times a number. And the opposite of timesing, or the opposite of multiplying, is to divide. We're not going to add here. That -3 is getting multiplied, and the opposite of multiplying by something is to divide. So we're dividing both sides by -3. That's the part where people mess up too. There's a lot of parts where students mess up equations, and the only way to truly overcome that is treat equations like free throws. You're not going to get good at free throws unless you practice free throws, or math in general. You will not improve your math skills unless you practice, definitely with equations. Now, we did divide, and I want you to think about this. What is -3 divided by -3? If you take any number, positive or negative, and you divide it by itself, that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking -3 divided by -3. Whenever you take a number and you divide it by itself, you get an understood 1. It does not give you 0. Now, I know I'm canceling them out. When I write this x here, when I bring that x down, there is technically an understood 1. -3 divided by -3 is 1. That 1, very rarely do you see it written there. Most of the time, you'll just see x. We have x by itself. Watch your signs. 18 divided by -3, that is a -6. Our final answer here is going to be A. Any questions about that? So check this out. I'm going to jump back over to here. I'm going to search in our own demand library for the word equation. There are actually 2 other webinars, an entire 2.5-hour webinar on solving equations. And it's me doing what I just did with all sorts of different types of equations. And then there's another one, bonus webinar where we solved the, don't watch that one yet. If you have not, you need to watch. If you have the on-demand library, watch this one first. Something kind of new for T7 is where sometimes there are some equations that have more than just one variable. It might be an X and a Y, or A, B, C. Yes, those are popping up. But that's where, tonight, again, I'm only doing one example from each one of these M.1 goals. But if you have the on-demand library, that they are broken up into so much more detail if you jump into those. And thank you, Miss Brown. I appreciate that. I love hearing that. Student was saying they hate math, but they actually are enjoying it, or because, sometimes with math, it's kind of like a brain teaser. And when you get brain teasers right, or if you solve a puzzle or something, it's kind of rewarding. It releases those feel good chemicals in your brain. If you start to actually understand something, it actually kind of becomes enjoyable to an extent. But yes, so our question bank at Archer is free, our 30 days for the question bank, but the on demand, yes, that does come. You do have a couple of options for pricing, but that is not free. The webinars that we offer here are free, but to go back and rewatch missed ones, yes, that does come at a price, and it does vary depending on how long you want to do it for, whether it be 90 days, a whole year, or something like that. So M.1.5. And y'all, I know this is a lot because we're going from one goal to the next, but this is what the test is going to be. It's not going to be all equations. You might have an equation on one problem, and the next problem, oh my goodness, here we go. They're ever coming. Word problems. M.1.5. So real world problems using one or multiple steps. Minute and a half, give it a shot. I'm so bad about remembering to do Slido. I'm sorry, but it's there. If you want to submit your answer, feel free. So I'm seeing a bunch of C's coming in. Let's see what we got here. So a patient has to travel 28 miles from her home to a clinic for chemo. She goes there and back 3 times each week. How many miles will the patient travel in all over the course of 8 weeks? So a couple of things here. And notice I emphasize some words to you. So 28 miles, that's from her home to a clinic. So when she leaves her house, she goes 28 miles to get to the clinic. She goes there and back. So basically 28 miles there, 28 miles back, or you could take 28 times 2, yes. But that gives you 56. So each time she goes to chemo, there and back is 56 miles. She does this 3 times every week. So we're going to triple this. 56 times 3. Notice the multiple steps that we're doing here, y'all. So 56 times 3 is 168 miles. That's how far she's traveling for chemo in 3 times each week. 168 miles a week. And how many miles will she travel over the course of 8 weeks? So that 168 miles that she goes every week, we want to figure out how long over the course of 8 weeks. We need to multiply. And this is a prime example where there's not really a formula for this. It's not like geometry where you can plug in something for the area of a rectangle or a triangle. This is multiple steps, multi-step. And sometimes that boils down to you thinking, should I be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? And you guessed it. I mean, there's definitely I don't know if it's actually going to play. I don't think it's going to because let me see, multi step. Yeah, here we go. So this webinar right here, I don't think I'm gonna see if it plays, but since I'm sharing my screen, we have a way at Archer, like if you're trying to share your screen or record it, it will not show you the video. It's like a way to protect the material. So I don't think it's going to play. Let me see. Okay, so
I've got about 40 people in here.
Just fast forward. Look, so there's number 3 on this particular night. This was a 2-hour webinar. Look, 8 examples. How many did I end up doing that night? There's number 9. Yeah, so I did 9 examples on that particular night of multi-step word problems. Oh, so it is showing up blank for y'all. Okay. I thought it would. If I'm sharing my screen, there's a way that kind of protects the videos. I promise you, if you're just on your own laptop, it will play. It's just that's a little block that I have. Yes, I think it's really neat. It keeps people from, illegally sharing material. But I assure you it works. Oh, and I am seeing it now on the stream too. Yes, it does show up blank. But yeah, there were 9 questions, 9 different examples that night on just multi-step word problems. And speaking of word problems, M.1.6, we got some more of them, y'all. More word problems. This is dealing with percentages. Minute and a half, try it out. Okay, so this is a tricky one. Tricky, tricky, tricky. I do see a lot of A's, and I can understand why you're probably saying A. Now, first of all, let's figure out where A comes from. We're just not quite there if we picked A. So $4,000, if Brianna invested $4,000 at 3.5% annual interest. This is called simple interest, by the way. There are other types of interest. This is the only interest you need to understand for TEAS. You don't have to worry about compound interest or compound like monthly or continuously. just simple interest. And I'm not saying simple as in it's easy. It's literally called simple interest. So $4,000 times 3.5%. Now you can actually type the percentage in on the TEAS calculator. You do not have to convert it to a decimal. It seems like years ago that was not an option, but now we can just type in $4,000 times 3.5%. And what we get, did I type that in right? $4,000 times 3.5%. That calculator is not calculating that right. Let me double check something. It's 0.035. Okay, no. Oh yeah, we're good. We're good. This is $140. I'm tripping. All right, we're good. $140. Here's what this number represents, y'all. $140 is what is the interest that she is going to earn each year because it's annual interest. Now she's going to do this for 6 years. So let's multiply the 140. That's how much she is earning per year times 6 years, $840. Now this is where we got to be careful. I told you, there's A, right? $840 will be the interest that Brianna earns over the course of 6 years. Now, A is not correct, but I'm going to put up here, this is the interest that was earned. Had the question said, how much interest did she earn, then you would pick A. But the kicker here is how much will she have? Well, she's still going to have that $4,000 that she invested because she's going to invest that money. That's still her money, even though she invested it. It's still hers. So she's going to have that $4,000 plus the $840. That's how much money she will have after 6 years. Trick question. I know. They are going to do, not every question is going to be like this, but there are going to be questions, word problems on the TEAS where a number, some number or some answer may be a number that shows up, but we just got to make sure we're answering that question here. But again, yes, A would have been correct had the question said, how much interest did Brianna earn after 6 years? She earned $840. Now, as for other types of interest, do not worry about them for TEAS. There are, and those of y'all that have taken maybe some quantitative literacy classes or maybe even some financing classes, do not worry about compound interest. You do not have to worry about that for TEAS. Just simple interest. And basically you're taking the technical formula for simple interest is I equals PRT. I don't really stress people to know that as long as you know to multiply, because next month when I go over M.2, there are going to be some formulas that we need to memorize, and that falls underneath geometry. But I mean, yeah, there's the simple interest formula. I equals PRT. All right, so that's M.1.6, word problems involving percentages. Now, M.1.7 could be word problems, might not. It could be, it couldn't be. Who knows? One way or the other, you're dealing with estimation and some rounding per se. It may be a word problem. It may not be a word problem. In this case, it is. Make sure you read the directions carefully. Minute and a half. Try it out. Now, when it comes to estimation, there are different people teach it different. If you were to look up estimation, some people will tell you not to round, some people will tell you to round. I'm going to tell you to round. That is the overwhelming majority. Like a lot of times when it comes to math, there's like one answer that's correct. But when it comes to estimation, if you look it up, I mean, there's been like heated debates, like how should you estimate? I'm going to tell you, and in this case here, we want to add up. We want to find the sum, which means we want to add up all of these weights. But look at what it tells us to do. Round each package to the nearest pound. This is where estimation comes into play. You do not want to add these up and then round at the end. So estimate means you're making the numbers easier to work with right out the gate. Right from the beginning, estimation, you're not rounding the final answer, you're rounding individual pieces, so to speak. You're estimating. So we want to round each package to the nearest pound. So the 8.6, we're just going to say that, hey, that's 9. Nearest pound means the nearest whole number, the nearest ones digit. That 6 tells that 8 to go up. 2.3 pounds. Now, I'm going to tell you to round because that's what the problem's telling you to do. But some people will tell you if it's over a certain number, bump it up. I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 when it comes to estimation, and plus I'm telling you to round. I'm telling you to round. Round like usual. But the big kicker is that we're not adding these up at the beginning. We're rounding first, and then we're going to add. And that can change your answer. So 6.9, that rounds to 7. 4.5, that goes up to 5, right? That 5 right there beside that 4 shoots it on up. And let me make a little bit, whoops, a little bit of room here. And then that 7.8 is also going to go up to 8 pounds. So really only one of them stayed the same. Every single other one, we bumped it on up. Now we want to find the sum of that. So whatever we get when we add this up, 9, 11, 18, 23, 31. So C is our answer right here. Any questions about that? Now let's see what would have happened. Let's see what would have happened if we added them up without rounding first. So I'm just going to type all these in, adding them up. Okay. So I see why some of y'all picked B, right? So B, if you added them up first and then rounded at the end, that would round to 30 pounds. But notice it says estimate the sum by rounding each package. So each one of these, round them first, then find the sum. So 31. But I could see where, if you added first and then rounded, yes, that's where B would have popped up. Any questions about that? All right, so we got M.1.8, .9, and .10. We got 3 more examples, 3 more goals to cover. Here comes M.1.8. Yes, another word problem. Proportions. You cannot do every single word problem with a proportion, but a lot of problems you can. Here's an example, minute and a half, try it out. Right. So with proportions, there is definitely more than one way to set things up. Now, when people first look at this one too, I've worked problems similarly out with students before, and they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, we gotta convert between quarts and gallons," and actually we don't. The reason why we don't convert here is because the quarts relates to the coolant, whereas the gallons relate to the water. So you're not converting between quarts and gallons. I mean, some of y'all may be thinking, well, there's 4 quarts in a gallon, and that is right. We do not use that here. The quarts are related to one thing, and the gallons are related to another thing. I like to use the word things. And taking that right there, so 1.5 quarts of coolant is going to be essentially mixed with 4 gallons of water. So I'm going to write 1.5 and I'm going to say equals 4. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually go ahead and show you another way that you could set this up. There's so many ways that you could set up this proportion. You could also put 1.5 over 4. This is just a second way. There's other ways that you can set it up. But however you choose to set it up, whether it be this way here or this way here, it does matter how you do the rest of it. Now, this one, the 1.5, I have the quarts on the left, and the 4 gallons, I have gallons on the right. So we want to keep quarts on the left, and we want to keep gallons on the right in this particular proportion. So 1.5 quarts, here is 12 quarts. We want to put that 12 on the quarts side, so to speak. And notice the question says, how many gallons? X goes right there in that particular proportion. So many ways to set this up correctly. Again, I'm showing you 2 out of several. Now let's look and see how this one will look different. It's going to give us the same answer. Notice here we have the quarts at the top, and we're putting the gallons at the bottom. That's the thing. Either pick left versus right or top versus bottom. And you might say, well, which one do I do? It doesn't matter. So now, since I have quarts at the top and gallons at the bottom, the 12 quarts is going to go at the top. And our X gallons will go down here at the bottom. So there is a slight difference in the way these look, but you have that freedom. I can't tell you which way to do it. I mean, find what works best for you. You can't figure that out in just this one example. So go to our QBank, M.1.8. Look for the goal that mentions the word proportion. And there's like 30 different examples in that section that you can really hone in on this skill. If you have the on-demand library, 2-hour webinar on doing proportions and word problems. Now, how do we solve it? And in that 2-hour webinar that I did on proportions, I really hit on this. I always tell students, look, out of the 12, the 1.5, and the 4, out of those 3 numbers that you see right here, this one, and this one, which one is getting cross multiplied by the variable? If we look at it, do y'all see how the 1.5 is getting cross multiplied? That's how we can solve proportions. Well, whatever number is getting crossed with the variable is actually going to be the number that you divide by. And even though this proportion over here is set up different, the 1.5 is still getting crossed with the X. Regardless of how you set your proportion up, that 1.5 is still going to be getting crossed with the X. So what I tell people to do, don't even worry about that number. Multiply the other 2 numbers first, 12 times 4, and then you can go in and immediately divide by that number that's getting crossed with the variable. And I do want you to notice, I like typing stuff in as fast as possible. And I want you to notice here that I only pressed equals one time. I multiplied the two numbers that were not getting crossed with the X, the 12 and the 4. Multiply those, immediately divide by the number that is getting crossed with the X. And I promise you, this will always work when you're dealing with proportions. A is our correct answer here. Any questions about that? All right, let's jump into M.1.9. Another real world problem. But yeah, so a lot of real world problems fall underneath different goals. Minute 30, give it a shot. All right, so I mean, the questions that I'm giving y'all here, I work with students all the time, private tutoring, and I've had a lot of people who have taken the TEAS already, or they're preparing for the TEAS. Regardless, through me just doing this over the years and working with so many students, I do know what a lot of people run across. And if you have, I think it's worth mentioning. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you need to find the average speed, that is what this question is asking us to find. What you want to do, you got to look at everything in total. Everything in total. So take the total distance, whether it be multiple stops, multiple trips, whatever, and divide it by the total time. What you don't want to do is you don't want to try to find the average of one part of the trip and then an average of another part of the trip, or in this case, a ship sailing on some journey, after the stop. No, do not break it up. When you want average speed, you take the total distance and you divide by the total time. So total distance, we add up 300 kilometers as well as 200 kilometers. Total distance, 500 kilometers. Do not look at, I know it's two separate stops, but total distance. And then we divide by the total time. And let me just get a different color. So 2.5 hours for the first part, and then 1.5 hours for the other part. If you add those together, that will give you 4 hours. Take your distance divided by your time, and that's total distance divided by total time. So if we take 500 divided by 4, we get 125. And, something worth mentioning here too is kilometers per hour. That's exactly what this fraction is saying, y'all. Kilometers per, that's the fraction bar, hour. Kilometers per hour. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a crazy question. You don't have to do, it's not a multi-step here in terms of, you don't treat this one as one thing and treat this one as another thing and then find the average. That's not how you find average speed. Total distance divided by total time. And I do know for a fact, a lot of people, they will find the average speed of each individual piece. They'll find the average speed of maybe the first part of the trip, then the average speed of the second part of the trip, then they'll find the average of those. That's not how we find average speed for the entire trip. Yes. So question, regarding average speed, for the sake of the TEAS, always do it like this. All right. We got one more, M.1.10. This involves translating. You're going to take a sentence with numbers and all sorts of other stuff, and you're going to translate it into a math problem. In this case, we're going to translate it into an equation. Last example for the night, minute and 30 seconds. Try it out. All right. Now, the most common thing that I see here when it comes to translating is when somebody sees 5 less than 4 times the number of backpacks. I'm going to go ahead and tell you which one's wrong. B is not correct. You got to flip it around, so to speak. And here's what I want you to think about. Think about this. Let me ask y'all a question. I can type. What is 5 less than 20? Somebody ask you that question. What is 5 less than 20? And maybe you're thinking 15. 15 is 5 less, is 5 lower than 20. But the math problem, the actual math is 20 minus 5, and it is not 5 minus 20. Do y'all see what I'm saying? 5 less than 20 means 20 minus 5. When you see that less than, that's the kicker. 5 less than, we want to subtract the 5. The 5 needs to be subtracted. So our answer is going to be D. 5 less than 4 times the number of backpacks. Now the other two are wrong because we got the 5 and the 4 mixed up with the variable. We don't want 5 times the backpacks. We want 4 times the backpacks. But hopefully this over here kind of gets you to think about that. Like if I asked you, what is 5 less than 20? You're technically taking 20 minus 5. Now, these definitely take practice, no doubt about it. Just a couple of things here. If I jump to two places I'm going to search. So in our on-demand library, look at that. 1 hour and 56 minutes on just translating algebraic problems. And then two, I mentioned our Q bank. Let me jump into that real quick. Remember, free for 30 days. I'm going to look at all the questions. I'm going to go to math, numbers, and algebra. And then I'm going to go, bam, translating algebraic problems. There's that last goal we did. If I create a test, you get to practice one after the, oh my goodness gracious, the number of tulips at a flower nursery is 6 less than 5 times the number of roses. It's the same daggone problem, except we're not talking about, what was it, tents and backpacks. So 6 less than 5 times. I know y'all probably can't see that, but boom, got it right. Got a little rationale over here. Continue. So yeah, that one was backwards. That's right. And I actually hit on that 5 less than twice a number. When I wrote these questions, I've got so many. Now, by the way, I know y'all can see this. The thing I was trying to show y'all earlier was the actual video. Question bank, I know this will pop up on the screen. But if I can't show you the videos playing because of the way that we have it set up. Like if you try to screen record the videos, you can't. And there's a block on it. You can watch them, but if you try to screen record a video and save it, it's just not going to happen. It's just a way to protect our stuff. Yeah. All right. But yeah, so a bunch of questions right there on translating algebraic expressions. And I know for the most part, that 30 days, that might be all you need. But if you do need some other explanations too, you have the on-demand videos. If you have some peers who y'all want to get together and powwow and do a group tutoring session, or if you want to do some private tutoring, we offer all those options. Now, what I'm going to do from here is, this is going to take me a minute. I used to have a quick way that I saved it, but now I have to save it a slightly different way than what I used to. So give me just a few, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes to save this up. I'm going to share a link with y'all. But in the meantime, here's what I want y'all to do. Let me see. Seconds. All right, I'm gonna copy and paste this over in the chat and see if y'all can leave. You know what? That might not work. I don't know. Yeah, it should. And if that link doesn't work, this is just feedback, by the way. I just want to get y'all's feedback on what y'all thought of the webinar. We do take this stuff very seriously in what we're doing. If that link did not work for y'all, try this one right here. I'm gonna pop that over in YouTube and Facebook as well. All right, so I'm gonna shut up for a second. I'm gonna save these notes up and I'm gonna get y'all a link for the notes as well. Hang tight. All right, so notes, there is tonight's notes over in Zoom. Let me pop it over on Facebook. Uh-oh, did I close out? Nope, right here. All right, can y'all see that link right there for tonight's notes? Very good. Now, coming up in June, somebody's asking about the registration link. So, sure. If you click on that link, now if you're in Zoom, I think you have to actually copy and paste, but that is where you can register for our webinars. You might have to copy and paste that archerreview.link/TEAS webinars. You can see what's coming up. I still have some, or we have some more to add. Let me see what we have up here. I'm looking myself. So yeah, right now, okay, so Tammy's got one coming up on June 5th and June 12th, English and reading. And then I have one coming up on June the 20th. And then what we're starting to do is schedule them 2 months out. So basically, you're going to see that part 2 with me on June 20th. And then you'll see back, if you scroll through, you'll see July. I'm doing part 1 all over again with different examples. So if y'all are testing like within the next month or 2, you'll still get a good taste. If y'all are testing in, say, August, you essentially, if you attend these webinars, you'll see the same webinar again, but I will do different examples every time to make it unique, and still worth your time to attend. Now, I know you don't see any science up here. Maybe science webinars in June once we get our new science instructors fully on board. And then we'll definitely, for sure, I hope we have some coming in July nonetheless. But yeah. So any last minute questions before we call it a night? I know it's not quite 2 hours, but I think we covered a lot. Your brain's probably hurting jumping all around like we did. And again, did y'all please leave some feedback on that link I gave earlier? I think actually, if you have your phone, if you didn't leave feedback, please consider doing this. And I think that one's right. Up here on the screen, I think that one works. Scan that and answer just a few quick questions. We'd appreciate it. All right. So the question bank had a question. So how do you get the free Q bank? That can be honestly a little bit. If you go to Archer's website, I'll copy this over to, give me 1 second. We'll copy that link over into the chat as well as Facebook and YouTube. If you click there, it almost can kind of be a little bit misleading, but so just T7 QBank. By the way, if you want to get it for free, click buy now, and then you'll see 30 days free access. If you know that you're going to want to get the videos too, what I recommend doing, I mean, you can get the videos separate, or you can go ahead and bundle them both together, discounted combos, 90 days. You get, so not just 30 days of QBank access, you actually get 90 days of QBank access as well as the on-demand videos. And the on-demand videos, we keep adding them. As a matter of fact, a huge project we are doing at Archer is we're taking these 2-hour webinars. They're great for live. We're actually creating what's called well-polished videos, where we're pretty much teaching the same thing, but we're not dealing with the live webinar piece. You know, we're making videos. Like actually, they're the videos that we're working on that you'll see for math. I'm actually on camera. I know I don't get on camera much when I'm doing. Well, actually, I never get on camera when I'm doing live webinars. But in those videos, every instructor will be on camera. It's much more personal. But those will be coming sometime this summer. But yeah, that's what you have here. So, oh yeah, and I mean, for $49, half a year, if you're testing a year from now, 59. And I mean that you get access for a whole year. And by the way, too, we do giveaways. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We do giveaways, and ever since like February, I've given away 1 year access to about 10 different students, I think. And I mean, they have a whole, and actually that includes a free hour of tutoring too, the giveaways that we do. So keep on the lookout for that. As a matter of fact, if you go to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, or TikTok, you can find those. It's real quick to enter too, by the way. Just give us a follow, give us a like, tag somebody or something like that, and boom. So look for those contests. And as a matter of fact, you better do it tonight. Ooh, you better do it tonight if you want to win that, because I think tomorrow that's on my to-do list, is to actually do the poll or do the random choice winner on May 20th. So get on it. People asking, am I on YouTube? Yes, I do have a YouTube channel. If you want to check out my TEAS stuff, check out www.beatcraftmath.com/ATITs. Basically, you will see stuff that I have done for years and years and years of TEAS math, but that's all I do. Whereas at Archer, you get the whole enchilada, the kit and caboodle, English, reading, math, and science. Right. I think we are good. So I hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Maybe I'll see you on socials. How are your personal tutoring sessions done? So Archer, if you want to book one through Archer, I'm gonna pop in the tutoring links, and you can find them on that website, but I'm gonna give you the links anyway. You might have to copy and paste that. Something about that archerreview.link/TEAS-tutors. That's where you can go, and you can read all the information there too. But those are done through Zoom. If you go through Archer, the tutoring sessions are done through Zoom, like this, except big difference, you can actually talk. Like if you did a private tutoring session with me, we could talk back and forth. Obviously, we can't do that tonight in these webinars. Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope y'all take care. I will see y'all next month, if not sooner. Have a good one. Good night.